Right. Hello, this is Raul and Patrick and Thomas for meeting on TakeMeAway project. Yes, Thomas, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm okay. Haven't done much, unfortunately, in terms of coding on any Agile Ventures projects, but especially TakeMeAway, unfortunately. But
Mm.
I've reviewed some, just glanced over Patrick's latest pull test. Looks good. However, I was thinking about that. I didn't have the time to write down any comments, but I was thinking about this Cucumber features for creating menus. Perhaps we should have a feature or some sort of test just to make sure that the menu items with the status of inactive or whatever we're using aren't actually showing up in the you know
In the
uh,
API response.
yeah, well, no, not the API response, but there is
Oh,
a
you mean in the admin interface that we don't show them? Is that right?
yeah. How do you
Well,
feel about
actually,
that, Patrick?
that actually is already baked into the PR. So you can't add a menu item to a menu if the menu item is inactive. It won't show up in the pull-down list you select from.
Okay.
Also, if you go into a menu item and edit it and try to set the status to inactive,
Mm-hmm.
we check and make sure that the menu item is not in any menu, any current or future menu. If it is, we don't allow the setting of status to inactive. They have to go remove it from a menu and then go back and set the menu item to inactive. So all that stuff is baked in there.
Okay, but I didn't. Again, I just glanced over the test, but I didn't see a high-level test for that. You had a before action and the menu creation, or is it called menu workflow? Uh, there was this before block, given that certain menu items exists and they were all set to active.
Active, yeah.
And I was thinking that perhaps this could be a good place to create a menu item that is set to inactive, and just write a scenario for,
in case somebody tries to select it, yeah.
That's one thing. And the other thing, just when you were speaking now, Patrick, I was just thinking, so let's say I've had a menu item like a dish, and I used to have it in my menus, and now I don't want to have that anymore. So when you say that you make a check whether this menu item is in any menus, is that only menus that are ahead of in time, or is that all menus?
If the menu item is in an obsolete menu, an historical menu, you can set it to inactive.
Okay.
There's no problem there.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool.
Yep. So
in
terms of the scenarios, let me see. We've got. I did add a scenario to menu item workflow. Whereas if you try,
yes, I'm right here.
If you go to the bottom of the file,
attempt to
so
set
if you attempt to, yeah, exactly. So we attempt to set the menu item to inactive status, but this particular menu item is already in a menu that's current, and so we check to make sure that we disallow it and we show the correct error on the page.
Sure.
Yeah, that's cool. But
I think what Thomas was saying is that in some of these tests here we only have cases where the menu is already set as active. Maybe it was gonna be good to have an extra test for instances where the menu is already set to inactive, and then maybe somebody tries to add it.
You know what I mean? I mean, if you have this before block, if you just scroll up a little bit. So given the following menu item exists, chicken and beef, right? And they are both set to active. So let's say you have another menu item called pasta or whatever set to inactive, and then you create a scenario that you create a menu, and you shouldn't be able, we want to have a sad path kind of a variant of a scenario where you can't be able to choose pasta and add it to this particular menu. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I started to do that. That was a little bit more involved, so I can work on that. So that's basically Capybara. I have to go and find that pull-down list, and I have to confirm that the inactive menu item is not available in the pull-down list right into a menu. I know exactly what you're saying. I just kind of thought I'd get to that later if we need it, but I can certainly work on that. That's a little bit more involved in parsing that item, but.
Yeah. Okay. So we have to find that select item, and you have to check for options. So there's a within select. You can use the within command. So you find that. So within that selector, there are several options, and you shouldn't see. That block shouldn't include an option called, for instance, pasta. Yeah.
Whatever the pasta, inactive pasta.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can work on adding that to the workflow.
Other than that, I just went over this rather quickly, but I think it looks good. So I don't have any objections to this pull request.
All right. Awesome. And then
but there's another thing that I don't understand with the payment functionality thingy.
Yeah.
Okay, so on a high level, I understand that we are processing the payment through the front end interface, right?
Apparently, there's something happening in the back end.
Yeah. What is happening in the back end? I don't understand what is happening in the back end.
I'm not quite sure about it. Sampriti and Christian were the one working mostly on that, so there would be much more place to answer your questions.
Gotcha. Okay.
I was reading through the code and I'm myself I'm blank here.
Yeah.
Never implemented.
Yeah. Okay. So because I couldn't quite understand what is going on, so that's why I couldn't also do any code review on this one, because I just I just didn't understand what's going down. So we can wait for them to clarify that.
I think Sampriti was in the back end, so maybe when he's available, he can try and explain what's happening, what was the logic. But I know in the front end, Christian was just making sure that we have a form to submit payments after the customer places an order. Where is that? Also didn't get time to review it myself. So what I'll do later on today is I'll pull everything from those PR and then just run them locally on my computer to see what's happening there.
See, because what I believe we should do, but that's just my opinion. What I believe we should do, we should. Hold on a second. Sorry, guys. We should find a way to process the payment through the back end, actually, because if possible, because we want to be able to build new clients, as easy as possible. So API calls only, right? And everything should be processed, through the backend. The challenge here is that we don't want to send off credit cards number and CVS numbers unencrypted through the internet to our backend. So that's a problem, So I don't know if we should process payment in front end because of security issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or if we should do both, basically. So, I mean, this is a very complicated issue. So that's why I would like to hear Sampriti's and Christian's opinion about this. But from the perspective of on a monolithic application, I think that everything should be done in the back end, and that the front end applications are rather stupid. They don't contain too much logic, but rather just speak back and forward to the API by giving the back end all the necessary information through the endpoints, but some calculations are of course done on the front end, but most of the data is transferred through the API. But in terms of the payment, this is a challenge because we cannot transport or transfer credit card numbers through a post request to our own servers and then process that payment to Stripe.
So how do you think we can handle that then? Do we do payments straight from the front end and then send the response from Stripe to the back end, or how do we...
Well, I don't have an answer to that actually. One way to do that is just, I'm just thinking out loud here. One way to do this is just to handle the API, the payment from the front end, get the response back from Stripe saying that everything is cool, and then process that you make an API call to our backend saying that this is the order and Stripe says it's cool, right? So then we can process it. But another thing is that we could do that, but we can also get some sort of a Stripe order number or identification number, so that we send off not a status per se, saying that if it's cool or not cool, or paid or not paid, but an a Stripe transaction identification number. Then the backend could go in, and saying, so tell me about this ID. What's the status of it? Because then we can pull more info. We can write some customer history in the backend, etc., etc. Because I know for a fact that there's a lot of info stored in the Stripe administrative, in the Stripe database that can be accessed through the dashboard, but also through the Stripe API.
Okay.
So, but I don't have an answer to this, but I know that I would like as much as possible to be done through the backend, but there are challenges. There are some security issues that we need to consider.
Yeah, it's going to be complex because now, like, the user obviously is going to enter his card details from the front end. So how do we ensure that that data is encrypted?
Yes, we have to. That's what I'm talking about also, because it's all about trust. People won't give you their credit card's number unless they trust that this is a secure payment. And another issue that is simply illegal. You can't process those card numbers over unprotected protocols. Because if the shit hits the fan, then the business owner or the operator of the site is going to be liable for any fraud that arises from that, etc., etc. So I know that Stripe provides like ready-made forms, for front-end applications that speaks directly to the Stripe API, basically. But I don't know if there's any AngularJS libraries for that or something, that needs to be investigated, I guess.
Well, I think probably Christian had an issue with those forms, trying to include them in the Angular application. Yeah, because apparently you have to include those. So what I was saying, and I don't know if you picked it up in the last chat that we had in Hangout, is that we could probably, if there isn't something like that already, maybe we could create a directive for an Angular directive for that we can call anytime. The problem is that, I don't know, the thing with Angular is that for that to work, you need to add it. If you add it in what's that? A partial file, then chances are it won't render when you need it. So that's the little challenge that he had with it, I think. Yeah. But I'll have a look at it, see if we can, if there's something I can do on that side.
Okay.
Make use of
okay. And then what we need to have a look at when you make that call to the Stripe API. What is it exactly that you get back from it? When I was implementing Stripe for a Rails app, I found this place. You could have like a playground site for API calls for Stripe, and I could see exactly what this data structure of the JSON response would be, and what sort of info I get back, because what we need to have from Stripe is some sort of identification for that particular transaction. I mean, in the worst case, the simplest scenario, we just get a status. It's paid or not paid, But in the best case, we get a transaction identification number that we can pass on to our own backend, and then from the backend we can pull that info. We can do stuff with it, basically, because then we can hit the API again. This means that we query that API once in the front end and at least once from the back end for the same transaction. But that doesn't really matter. It doesn't put any strains on our resources. Because exactly. I'm just thinking out loud here. Because we want that transaction ID, because then we don't have to pass so much information between our applications. We just pass that ID, and then the backend fetches whatever it needs from the Stripe API again, basically. This is the one I saw. So if you click on charges there, for instance.
Charges. There we go.
There's an example response ID. Yeah, so you get this ID. You see that? That's CH_16. Yeah. So when
you get the status that the transaction succeeded and all that.
Yeah. Okay, so you get both those. Yeah. But that ID on top, it's a good thing for us to have. This is the ID we would need to pass to our app and store it somehow in the order. Because if we have that ID stored in the order table, then we can use that to fetch information about that particular transaction.
Okay. Cool. Let's I don't know when. I know Christian said he wasn't going to be available this week, so maybe since you were going through this, let's hear from Sampriti what was their thinking when they built that, and then we can talk about that.
Yeah, we can talk to Sampriti tomorrow, perhaps.
Yeah, sure. Cool. Yeah, myself, I didn't do much on the project this week, so I was busy with other activities. Yeah, but I'll. Yes.
So, Raul, I was just going to ask, have you set up the next customer meeting?
Not yet.
You're working on that? Oh, okay.
Not yet. I was hoping we could finalize with the payment at least before I can do that.
Yep.
I agree. Yeah.
So, yeah. As soon as I have that, then maybe I'll get him to meet with us.
I'm wondering if there's anything we can get in advance of the meeting regarding his reporting requirements, so we can at least start roughing things out. I think that's the next big thing we need to tackle.
Absolutely. I would say to start, we could have we can assume that he will have a daily report, to be able to print that or send it off to himself somehow or something, like the daily sales or stuff.
Yeah, some form he enters, start date, end date. You get all the sales for that date, totals.
Yeah.
Totals by day, totals overall, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Once you start, defining reports and stuff, you can end up designing and aggregating data to an endless variety of reports, basically. So we have to keep it to a minimum. So,
well, yeah, and you're exactly right. Do you guys know of any open source BI tool that you can bolt on to Rails, like Jasper or some of these other business intelligence tools? That would allow the client actually to roll their own reports if it's done right.
Yeah. That would be a good thing. That needs to be researched. I haven't thought of it before, but it's a good question.
I'll do some work on that. See if I can find something.
Cool.
That'd be great. That'd be great if we could do something like that for them.
Less work for us.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then there is this aspect of. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say it might be more work to set up, but in the long run, he doesn't have to come back to us every time he wants to tweak a report or something.
And then there's this issue of data visualization that we could, add to the dashboard, like how many people have visited your website, or how many orders today or this week, stuff like that. So we can aggregate some data and just present that in a cool fashion. It's mainly cosmetics. It doesn't really mean much, but I get people like that. Apple pie diagrams and shit.
What's your guys feeling on using something like Google Analytics? Just put that footer in all the pages and just exploit that capability.
Could be a good.
On the back end, it's on the back end, of course. I don't know if they do that on the front end, but I'm sure, Raul, we could figure out how to make that work on the front end.
So I think for site visit, we would want to have analytics in the front end and find a way to pull that data in and show that in the dashboard. Then doesn't have to go to Google Analytics every time he wants to see how many people visited his website.
Yeah, and we can set up goals. I recently did that for the Makers Academy Sweden website. We configured certain links so every certain link clicks were recorded, and I can pull that data out, and I can see the app I've built for Makers Academy Sweden is a one-page application, but we have a link to apply form page on top of the one-pager and also at the very bottom. So I gave these two links different IDs, and I'm tracking the popularity of the link. So because I want to know who is clicking the top link, how many people are clicking the top link and how many people are clicking the bottom link. And it showed after a while that they are equally popular. So it's a good thing that we have two of them actually. That's the conclusion we can draw, because the top one disappears after a while, and the bottom one is visible, right? So if one of them were gone, perhaps we end up having less applicants basically. So, but it's an interesting interesting data to have and to base certain decisions on. But what I'm saying is that we can basically tag everything that they do. I can tag how far down the one pager they scroll, because I can trigger an event. When window is like 5,000 pixels from top, right? So that triggers an event and sends it off to Google Analytics, for instance, etc., etc. So you can tag and code everything basically. So that could be interesting in terms for TakeMeAway. Like how many people click on the menu, how many people visit the site, how many people click on the menu link, how many people browse back and forward, etc., etc. And all of that could be displayed on the dashboard if we find that interesting.
Cool.
So we can work on that, I guess.
How many people have been in the shopping cart? I think he'd be very interested in. Exactly.
Yeah. How many people order something and then remove that from the shopping cart, for instance? Would be interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I think unless there's something else, maybe you guys wanted to discuss. I think that's all for today.
Yeah. Cool.
Right.
So I'll work on that cucumber test, and I'll also work on finding if there's a BI tool we can use to exploit reporting. Is there anything else, Raul, that we need to start thinking about?
Not that I can think of at the moment. I think we're pretty much close to finishing with the main functionalities for this application. So
Okay.
Once we validate the payment and if you get something for the report, then we can start working on that.
Yep.
Cool.
Sounds good.
All right, guys.
Cool. You guys have a good evening.
Yeah, you too.
All right.
So
Thanks,
long.
guys.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Yeah.